So the first step we need to take in the research process is creating a critical question that can be answered through research. We talked about how this paper is not going to simply be an encyclopedia entry, but will instead need to have an argument built into it, which will eventually be presented as a thesis statement and another lesson that we'll get to later. In your research packet, page 4 starts to talk about the differences in types of questions. And as we develop our research question, we are not trying to create a simple question, which would elicit a yes or no answer or a simple fact like, how many shows have you binge watched on Netflix since Friday? The answer to this question, which I hope is fairly low for most of you, could never create a 7-page paper, as it barely creates one complete sentence. Also, we do not want to create a moral question which will concern your personal values and feelings, which is exactly why I do not allow the topic of abortion. We want a research-driven paper, not a paper driven by your personal biases, feelings, or anecdotes. What we do want to create is a critical question, which should lead to more questions, provoke discussion, concern itself with audience and authorial intent, derived from a critical or careful reading of information and research, which is what I'm going to ask you to do when we get to research and annotation, and address or tie in wider issues you may not have thought about yet. As you research, you may end up finding and creating and answering more questions, and that's fine. That's how your paper should work. So as we move on to page 5 of your packet, we're going to look at how to ask good questions. A good question and a critical question requires thought and research. I will explain how to find scholarly research later this week or early next week, but at this point, once you have a general topic, I would actually recommend reading through Wikipedia or doing a broad Google search. This is an easy way to start to understand the broader scope of your topic and start thinking about the nuances or complications of your issue, event, or person. For instance, it is easy to pose a question like, should the atomic bomb have been dropped on Japan? Such a question is simply an opinion question. It requires no research or special understanding into the problem. One way to begin framing better questions is to steadily add facts into the stew. These complicate your argument, basing it on solid historical premises, which of course you would need to prove in an essay. Think in terms of givens, for example. Given that the Japanese military establishment had vowed to fight to the bitter end, should the United States have dropped the bomb on Japan? Or given that the United States government was becoming increasingly concerned with post-war struggles with the Soviet Union, should the United States have dropped the bomb on Japan? Given that many in the United States expressed that what many call racist views of the Japanese, and in fact interned Japanese Americans in concentration camps during the war, should the United States have dropped the bomb on Japan? And finally, given that the United States had already embarked on an extensive deadly campaign of carpet bombing Japanese cities like Tokyo, should the United States have dropped the bomb on Japan? Now, if you're researching the atomic bomb on Japan during World War II, you may not have known any of this information previously, but going through Wikipedia, you would start to learn some of these issues of race and the Cold War and military strategy of the time. And that's the purpose of sort of looking at the broader ideas of your topic. So, from these premises that you have created through general research and reading of your topic, you can then start to make more explicit and critical questions, like, what impact did racism have on the decision to drop the bomb? What impact did the brewing Cold War with the Soviet Union have on the decision to drop the bomb? What impact did military strategy have on the decision to drop the bomb?